Good morning, everybody. Thank you for joining the Regeneus company update presentation. I'm Carlos, the new CEO of Regeneus. I'm very excited to join Regeneus at this transformative stage in the company's development. I truly believe that the company has a highly differentiated technology platform, which can be leveraged to address large market opportunities with unmet medical needs. In this first session as a CEO, I would like to provide you with an update on our company, technology, a product development roadmap, and other opportunities we are working on. I hope you will find this presentation and a subsequent Q&A session informative. Before we start, here is a disclaimer for your reference. This presentation is for information purposes only and contains certain forward-looking statements, which are no guarantees of future performance. I appreciate that most of you already know Regeneus, so I will provide only a high-level overview of the company. Regeneus is a pioneer cell therapy company founded in Sydney in 2017. We went public on the Australian Stock Exchange in 2013. The company develops two platform technologies. One is Progenza, which is mesenchymal stem cells and their bioactive secretome, so cytokines, chemokines, and extracellular vesicles. And another one is Regeneus, which is cell-free bioactive secretome. The lead indication for Progenza is knee osteoarthritis, where we successfully completed a phase 1 trial in Australia, and now we're preparing for multiple phase 2 trials. Regeneus has signed a collaboration and licensing agreement with Kyocera last year to commercialize Progenza in Japan. And the company has a very strong IP base with over 80 patents in key geographies. We have a market cap of around 34.5 million with a net cash balance of 4, so with an approximate enterprise value of around 30 million Australian dollars. The company is run by a highly experienced team. The board is led by Barry Sekos from Sherman Group. Other board members include Leo Lee, who's the president of Novartis Japan, and John Chiplin, who's an experienced biotech operator with multiple successful exits. I come to Regeneus with 17 years of experience in healthcare technology. Prior to Regeneus, I co-founded SingCell, which is a Singapore-based contract development and manufacturing organization focusing on stem cells, and also Om Health, which is a London-based digital therapeutics business. Prior to founding these ventures, I was a vice president in the mergers and acquisitions team at HSBC in London, primarily focusing on the healthcare sector. Our founding director and CSO, Graham Vesey, drives the Regeneus scientific efforts. Today, we're also joined by Charlotte, the head of R&D, and Sinead, the director of clinical development in this presentation. The cooperational team of Regeneus has over 10 years of experience working together, which demonstrates our commitment to technology and products we are developing to address large unmet medical needs. Now, I would like to provide you with a brief introduction and update to our technology and products. So Regeneus is one of the pioneer companies working with mesenchymal stem cells, or MSCs, and their bioactive secretome. MSCs are multipotent stem cells which perform various functions, including direct differentiation, activation of resident stem cells, and importantly, secretion of bioactive molecules, which we call a secretome. A bioactive secretome contains molecules such as cytokines, chemokines, growth factors, extracellular vesicles, which have an active therapeutic function in the human body. They actively reduce inflammation and promote tissue repair. What we all understood early on is that these molecules improve functionality and viability of MSCs themselves. So this combination of MSCs and the bioactive secretome exerts a much more powerful therapeutic effect than what MSCs alone would do. And this is one of the key differentiators of our technology. Regeneus uses allogeneic adipose-derived MSCs, where we can manufacture millions of doses of final product from a single donor. Our cells are safe. MSCs are known to be immune privileged cells, which escape patient's immune system without the risk of rejection. We also do not perform any genetic modification of cells, and this obviously provides us with a more straightforward regulatory approval pathway, as well as alleviates any concerns from potential licensing partners. Finally, our products have a well-understood mechanism of action, which I'll tell more about in the subsequent slides. So where do we sit across a spectrum of other technologies in regenerative medicine? On one hand, we have generation one companies which use only MSCs or induced pluripotent stem cells as their therapeutic agents. These therapies generally have underperformed in clinical trials compared to positive early preclinical data in an academic setting. One of the factors could potentially have been low functionality and viability of cells after freezing and subsequently thawing them in clinical trials. But also, it is now well understood that stem cells alone have only a limited differentiation and engraftment potential. On the other hand, we have emerging extracellular vesicle or EV technologies, which are novel, but still an early stage modality. Most of EV isolation and purification technologies are expensive, with scalable manufacturing yet to be proven. These companies are still trying to understand the mechanism of action of individual EVs, and most therapies are still years away from the clinic. So our Progenza technology, which combines cells and their bioactive secretome, including EVs, is well positioned in this range of technologies. We know that secretions play an important role in enhancing viability and functionality of MSCs, and they also have an independent immunomodulatory functions. This slide summarizes the mechanism of action of our Progenza product. Firstly, MSCs can directly differentiate into chondrocytes, thus promoting tissue repair, but direct differentiation is only a part of the picture. MSCs and their secretions play a very important paracrine role by modulating an inflamed environment in the knee. We have observed that Progenza MSCs and secretions are able to convert macrophages from pro-inflammatory to anti-inflammatory state. The product also suppresses T and B cell proliferation, as well as blocks maturation of NK and dendritic cells. Reducing inflammation results in halting of cartilage degeneration and reduction in pain. Finally, Progenza promotes endogenous cartilage repair with increased levels of ECM protein secretion and proliferation of chondrocytes. So in summary, the combination of MSCs and their bioactive secretome in Progenza exerts a powerful therapeutic effect via repair and regeneration of endogenous joint tissues, reducing inflammation, modulation of immune system, and pain relief. As I mentioned earlier, Regeneus develops two product platforms. So Progenza, which is MSCs and their secretome, and the second one is Regeneus, which is a cell-free secretome. Progenza is a phase 2 ready asset with the lead indication being knee osteoarthritis. We signed a collaboration and licensing agreement with Kyocera Corporation to commercialize this product in Japan. We're also preparing for phase 2 trials in the United States and Australia. Progenza is a platform technology which can be applied in various indications in pain and inflammation. We have strong preclinical data in neuropathic pain, and we will explore value-creating opportunities in this area going forward. Our Regeneus product contains all cytokines, growth factors, EVs secreted by MSCs, and we add them to creams or gels to be applied topically. Most of our work with Regeneus is in pain and wound healing applications. Both product platforms were developed internally and are protected by a portfolio of over 80 patents covering multiple indications in key geographies. Our patents cover product, manufacturing process, and the extensive therapeutic use. Importantly, we do not rely on any third parties to license our technology. This slide summarizes our non-clinical and clinical data. Firstly, we have successfully completed Progenza phase 1 trial for knee osteoarthritis. We confirmed primary endpoints of safety and tolerability at both low and high doses with a single injection. We also confirmed secondary endpoints of efficacy with statistically significant reduction in VAS and WOMAC pain scores, as well as halting of cartilage degeneration. This gives us a high degree of confidence that Progenza can be used not only as a pain management therapeutic, but also as a disease-modifying osteoarthritis drug, which is a holy grail in knee osteoarthritis. Secondly, neuropathic pain is central in many disease indications, including chronic lower back pain. We performed a study on chronic constriction injury model with Progenza and demonstrated that a single injection of Progenza modifies disease in 14 days. Thirdly, we ran multiple studies of Regeneus in various indications, including acne, age spots, and pigmentation. The product proved to be safe and efficacious. We also have a wide range of anecdotal evidence in pain and other indications, and we're now exploring various partnership models to advance Regeneus development. In summary, our extensive non-clinical and clinical data provides Regeneus with multiple development opportunities. And now we have a very focused strategy to advance these opportunities to get to the clinic in an expedited manner. I would also like to provide you with an overview of our CMC process. As you know, in advanced biologics, such as cell therapies, the manufacturing process is an integral part of the final product. And having an established, reliable process is of critical importance. As mentioned earlier, we use adipose-derived material, which contains up to 1,000 times more MSCs than bone marrow. We use allogeneic cells, which means that we can treat multiple patients from a single donor. Allogeneic approach also improves product safety, potency, and consistency. We undergo a rigorous donor screening process, and we do not perform any genetic reprogramming of cells. Here, you can also see how the manufacturing process looks like. We screen multiple donors based on our strict proprietary criteria. Then we extract lipoaspirate through a surgical procedure, such as liposuction. Subsequently, we isolate MSCs and expand them to manufacture millions of doses of the final GMP product, which is cryopreserved before administering to patient. The process has multiple advantages. It is highly scalable, where we can effectively manufacture enough doses to treat all osteoarthritis patients globally from a single donor. In this way, we do not have to source material or process variability, resulting in a homogeneous final product. This scalable process leads to lower cost of goods compared to autologous, pluripotent stem cell, or EB therapies. We can also further optimize manufacturing process by transitioning to a 3D bioreactor-based manufacturing process in the future. In terms of where we stand now, so we started manufacturing of GMP-grade master cell bank with a US-based contract manufacturing organization. The final product will be available later this year for phase 2 trials in the US and Australia. We have a well-characterized product with established quality control and product release criteria. Now I would like to provide you with more information about the market opportunity we are addressing. So pain is a large and growing problem worldwide. A large proportion of adult population, around 1.5 billion people, suffer from one or more types of pain, such as lower back, knee, headaches, and so on. Around a half of patients report inadequate relief by taking existing medications. We all witnessed an opioid addiction crisis in the US and see that patients around the world are in need for safer and more efficacious next generation therapeutics. Here at Regeneus, we now focus on knee osteoarthritis, which is pain and inflammation around the knee joint, but also we see multiple opportunities in other pain indications. Knee osteoarthritis indication is a large addressable market with over 240 million patients worldwide. The market size is $3.5 billion and is expected to grow once more advanced therapeutics, such as Progenza, are approved for patient use. The US is by far the largest market globally by value, with 60% of global share, and is expected to grow in the coming years. The osteoarthritis market benefits from secular tailwinds, such as aging population, increasing prevalence of obesity, a high degree of dissatisfaction with existing treatments, such as non-steroidal anti-inflammatory drugs or corticosteroids, and there are no disease-modifying treatments on the market at the moment. Here you can see a continuum of various osteoarthritis treatment options currently available. So low-grade knee osteoarthritis can be treated by managing weight and exercising. But as we know, an uptake and adherence to these interventions is relatively low. At higher pain grades, we have analgesics, NSAIDs, opioids, and injectable options such as hyaluronic acid and corticosteroids. However, these therapeutics only target symptoms and not the cause of the disease. There are various safety concerns, and they typically provide only a short-term pain relief. As mentioned earlier, there are currently no disease-modifying therapies on the market. And once you reach high grades of pain, patients need to consider various surgical interventions, such as in knee replacement. However, we all know the downsides of these therapies, such as cost, long recovery period, and limited lifespan of implants. So where does Progenza fit in the current osteoarthritis treatment market? A single shot of Progenza provides a long-term pain relief and halts cartilage degeneration before patients need to undergo a surgery or other invasive procedure. Progenza has a real shot to become the first disease-modifying osteoarthritis drug globally. So we've seen that there is a large unmet medical need for next-generation therapeutics in knee osteoarthritis. However, how is Progenza positioned with respect to other therapies currently in development? There are two monoclonal antibody products being developed. However, their primary endpoint is pain and not disease modification. There are also some cell therapy companies with early stage data, and these therapies are yet to be proved to be efficacious, have good safety profile, and low cost of manufacturing. We believe that Progenza is very well positioned to become a first-in-class disease-modifying therapeutic, a holy grail in knee osteoarthritis. Now I would like to provide more insight on how Regeneus is planning to capitalize on market opportunities discussed earlier. Regeneus has multiple levers on how to create value to shareholders by leveraging a comprehensive technology platform we developed. Firstly, a number of our near-term opportunities revolve around partnering with larger biopharma or medical device companies to run later stage trials and commercialize our products. As you know, we plan to launch Progenza in Japan in partnership with Kyocera. We're also exploring licensing opportunities for Progenza osteoarthritis worldwide ex-Japan. We consider licensing options in other indications for Progenza, such as neuropathic pain. And we're also discussing licensing of Regeneus to medical dermatology and other companies. Secondly, in addition to licensing opportunities, Regeneus is actively preparing to launch Progenza OA phase 2 trials in the US and Australia independently. We might be leveraging on certain grant opportunities to co-finance these trials. We are discussing various co-development projects for Regeneus with medical derma, cosmetic companies, and certain governmental agencies. And Regeneus has an active partnerships with Monash, University of Adelaide, UTS, and A-STAR in Singapore to support in-house development efforts. And thirdly, Regeneus would consider various strategic M&A options for the business, which could include a strategic sale to a large biopharma company. In addition, we continue assessing synergistic bolt-on acquisitions to expand our clinical pipeline or get access to complementary resources. This slide summarizes our development pipeline. As discussed, we are preparing for phase 2 Progenza OA trial in Japan together with Kyocera and expect to receive a conditional approval from PMDA in 2024. We're also actively preparing for phase 2 trial in the US with FDA pre-IND consultations planned in Q2 of this year. We have a potential to obtain an RMAT designation in the US and also obtain non-dilutive funding from NIH Pain Investigation Program to co-finance this trial. We have started manufacturing a GMP product for this trial already. And at the same token, we would run a similar phase 2 trial in Australia, where we submitted an NHMRC grant application with an expected outcome in Q2 of this year. In Europe, we obtained an advanced therapy medicinal product designation in 2018, and are now exploring various collaboration and licensing options. For Regeneus, we are planning a phase 1 trial in pain in Australia, and at the same time are discussing co-development and licensing options. Here, I would like to provide you with an update on our partnership with Kyocera in Japan. As a background, Kyocera is a global diversified conglomerate with $15 billion in revenue and $24 billion in market cap. Their life and environmental division manufactures medical devices, including orthopedic joint implants. With number 4 position in the prosthetics market, Kyocera has an established network of orthopedic physicians to distribute Progenza knee OA cell therapy. The partnership provides a true validation of our Progenza technology. The collaboration and licensing agreement was signed in August last year. It includes upfront and milestone payments of $19 million US and single to high double-digit royalties on product sale. Kyocera is responsible for product development, manufacturing, regulatory, and commercial processes in Japan. And we granted exclusivity only for knee osteoarthritis in Japan, and other markets and indications are available for licensing. We're well on track to deliver on our obligations to Kyocera and receive future milestone payments. We are progressing with a tech transfer, manufacture of a master cell bank, and intend to launch a phase 2 trial in 2022, with an expected PMDA conditional approval to be received in 2024. In addition to Japan, the Regeneus team is very excited about the osteoarthritis opportunity in the US. By value, US is expected to reach 75% of the global market share. The US has around 33 million OA patients, or 1 in 7 adults, which is a significant market for Progenza. We're now executing on our accelerated plan to prepare and launch Progenza OA phase 2 trial in the US. We plan to have an FDA pre-IND consultation in Q2 of this year, and we'll continue working on an NIH funding process, perform additional non-clinical work, manufacture the GMP final product so that we can get the IND application approved and start clinical trial recruitment in Q1 next year. At the same time, we are in active discussions with potential licensing partners to run this phase 2 and subsequently phase 3 trials and commercialize the product in the US. This opportunity is a clear value driver for the company and has strategic importance to us. In addition, we plan to replicate the US trial in Australia by using the same GMP product and a clinical trial protocol. We have submitted the NHMRC grant application to fund this trial and expect to receive a response around June this year. We're also preparing for a Regeneus phase 1 trial in pain indication in Australia. This trial is to be funded by a non-dilutive grant, which will be disclosed to the market shortly. In this final slide, I would like to summarize why Regeneus represents a great investment opportunity to you, our investors. Firstly, we have a leading differentiated technology platform. A unique combination of stem cells and their bioactive secretome exerts superior therapeutic effect and is applicable in a broad range of pain and inflammation indications. We have developed a scalable and cost-effective manufacturing process, and our IP has been developed and fully owned by the company. Secondly, our products target significant market opportunities with unmet medical need, such as disease modification in osteoarthritis. Thirdly, Progenza OA is a phase 2 ready asset with strong non-clinical and phase 1 data, additionally validated during the Kyocera's extensive technical due diligence process. And now we are working on active pipeline of potential licensing opportunities in key geographies. And lastly, Regeneus will benefit from numerous near-term value-creating opportunities. So Kyocera's partnership will deliver additional $30 million in milestone payments in the next 3 to 4 years. We're planning to launch an OA phase 2 trial in the US next year, which is a significant opportunity to the company, as well as OA phase 2 and pain phase 1 trials in Australia. So this concludes the presentation portion of today's webcast. And I would like now to hand over back to Kai and open up to questions.
Thank you, Carolus. So we're now moving into the Q&A portion of the session, and joining us will also be the Clinical Development and Medical Affairs Director, Dr. Sinead Blaber, and Regeneus' Head of Research and Development, Dr. Charlotte Morgan. Just a reminder, if you do have a question, please enter them into the Q&A panel, and I can see that there are plenty there already, so thank you. So to begin, our first question is for Carolus. Could you talk a bit further on the partnerships you're pursuing and where?
Sure. So as a micro small cap biotech company, the easiest and most de-risk way for us to commercialize our product is with partnering with a number of larger biopharma companies, or big pharma companies, or medical devices companies. So Kyocera partnership for us serves as a good case study, how the Progenza product can be further developed and commercialized in the market. And right now we have an active business development pipeline and discussing opportunities of Progenza commercialization in key geographies worldwide, with the US being a key focus area. So the team is working hard to build and nurture those relationships, and some of those are in more advanced stages. So as we go and progress, I'll be happy to share the capital markets community about the progress in this area.
Thank you. Our next question is, could you talk to phase 1 results and why this gives you the confidence to move forward with Progenza to phase 2?
Great question. And I guess I'll pass this question to Sinead, our Director of Clinical Development, to respond.
Yeah, thank you for the question. As Carolus mentioned in the presentation, our STEP trial met our primary endpoint of safety and tolerability, which is really great news for the development of Progenza. But really encouragingly, we also saw signs of efficacy. So we saw a rapid and sustained reduction in pain. And that wasn't just from one pain outcome measure, but 2. So we used 2 standardly used outcome measures in osteoarthritis trials, the VAS pain score and the WOMAC pain subscale. And we saw that pain relief sustained right out to the 12-month time point. We also saw improvements in the patient's knee function and stiffness in the STEP trial for patients who received Progenza, which is again really great for symptomatic relief for those patients. And lastly, we also saw halting of cartilage degeneration in the patients that received Progenza, which, as Carolus mentioned, puts us in good stead to pursue being the first disease-modifying osteoarthritis drug. So taken together, having demonstrated safety, symptomatic relief, and halting of disease progression means we're in a good position, and we have confidence to take Progenza through to the next step, which is the phase 2 trial. Thank you.
Thank you. Could you talk a little more on the manufacturing side and how delivering scalability and consistency underpin your competitive advantage? And what are the current collaborations you're working on?
Sure. So obviously manufacturing, as I mentioned in the presentation, is an integral part of a final product in such advanced biologic products like Progenza. And obviously we have Charlotte Morgan today on the call, who has an extensive experience in this field and has been working on the product from the very beginning. I would be happy for Charlotte to address this question.
Thanks, Carolus, and thanks for the question. Yes, we've had extensive years of experience in concentrating on the manufacturing process. And now that we're at an exciting stage where we are manufacturing with an experienced CDMO within the US. We're also tech transferring to Japan as well with our collaboration with Kyocera. Our main advantage there really is that we're able to make so many doses from a single donor, and our competitive advantage with the secretions means that we keep that dose pretty low. So the cost of goods essentially will also be low for each dose. In terms of collaborations, we've got multiple collaborations happening within Australia and overseas. Some of the key ones are working on mode of action of Progenza and secretions with the University of Monash University. We also work integrally with A-Star in terms of characterization assays and different ways to make sure that our manufacturing process is complete. And on the Scigenus, but also the Progenza front, the University of Adelaide, after our ARC grant, we continue to explore neuropathic pain with Dr. Mark Hutchinson down in Adelaide there. So we've got numerous collaborations on the go for both future product development, but also for our current focuses. Thank you.
Great, thank you. So considering that RGS has a patent for Progenza in the US, will you be looking to register on the US stock exchange?
So Regeneus at the moment, and with its current market cap, is considered as a small cap company in Australia. Obviously, as we advance with our product development and grow the valuation of the company, we'll have more opportunities with respect to our capital market strategy. So considerations around dual listing in the future is definitely in our roadmap. But at this stage, we believe we can attract sufficient interest from the capital markets community here by being listed in Australia, but various other options will be considered going forward.
Thank you. Next question. Is there a clear percentage figure in regards to the royalties that Kyocera will be paying Regeneus, and will this figure be the dividend paid to shareholders?
Mm-hmm. And so, as we indicated on the market multiple times, so we just provide a high level guidance of what that range is. So it is from single to high double-digit royalty rates, depending on certain conditions, and then the main one is the final price to be approved in the Japanese market. So here at this stage, we do not want to speculate, and obviously we're working hard in preparing for phase 2 trial, and depending on the endpoints of and efficacy readouts, we'll work with regulators to set the final pricing of a product, and based on that, our royalty rates will be set. So, but what I can say is that these royalty rates are in line with what you would expect in this type of agreement for this stage of a company.
Great, thank you. What do you think? Why do you think Regeneus is not valued in the market much more than its future cash that it is receiving from Kyocera?
Sure. So, well, obviously it's a complex question, and as we know, the valuation of businesses involve much more than just a DCF or an NPV analysis of the company. So here, as a number of other cell therapy companies, especially in the regenerative medicine space, Regeneus has a history of development. So we started with autologous, and we switched to allogeneic approach. And with time, some of our investors might have lost some confidence in the company, and various subjective factors might influence the valuation of a business. But me coming into the organization last year and having a more an outside-in perspective, and now seeing the value of company's technology and the opportunities we are addressing, so in Japan and in particular in the United States, my personal view that there is a strong valuation upside in the company. Obviously, I can't make any promises, but I believe that Regeneus has a lot of unlocked value, and myself and the team will be working hard to realize that value in the organization. You're on mute, Kai.
When do you estimate the RGS allogenic stem cells and secretions will be available in Australia, i.e. TGA approval timeline, assuming all goes well in trials?
Sure. So here, as I mentioned in the presentation, the US phase 2 for us is of significant importance to the business, given the size of the potential addressable market. We can use that setup of phase 2 in the US, so the same GMP product and the same clinical trial to run a phase 2 in Australia, so with relatively limited incremental costs. So we'll be doing that. And at the same time, we'll be discussing with TGA about potentially having that as a pivotal trial in order to get authorization in Australia. But again, these are just our internal considerations at the moment. And yes, we'll look at an Australian market, but in the grand scheme of things of a global osteoarthritis market, right now our key focus is on Japan and the United States.
Can you let us know where the phase 1 trial is being run?
So the question is where?
Yes.
Sinead, would you like to answer that?
Yeah, so just to clarify, the STEP trial phase 1 has been completed, and that was run in Sydney with Dr. Donald Qua. But the phase 1 trial that Carolus mentioned to do with Regeneus will be run in Australia, in Adelaide.
Thank you. Can the phase 2 work that's being done in Japan be used in other countries?
So yes and no. So currently we are working on preparing for that phase 2 trial. Local regulator, the PMDA in Japan, has generally broadly similar requirements to FDA in the United States and EMA in the European Union. So a number of work we are doing, like on clinical trial design, can be used in the US and Australia, but there might be certain differences as well. For example, on the manufacturing of a final product. So here the details are still being ironed out with Kyocera and discussions with PMDA. But from our perspective, obviously, would like to leverage as much work as possible, which we're currently doing in Japan, and translate that to the US and Australia.
Can I just add one further point to that? There are sometimes distinct differences in the types of questionnaires that are used due to different cultures. So sometimes the questionnaires that may be used to assess pain and stiffness and function in Japan may not be wholly recognized by the US. So there's those sorts of considerations that we need to take into account when considering whether to use data from the Japanese trial to support the US submission.
Yes. And having said that, successful phase 2 outcomes in a certain geography still will have
yes,
indirect benefits in speaking to regulators in other geographies.
That's correct. I guess it adds to building the safety and efficacy profile of the product.
Great, thank you. Our next question is, do you have data beyond the 12-month follow-up for Regeneus?
I guess the question relates to Progenza, and I'll let Sinead respond to that.
Yeah, so our STEP trial followed the patients for a 12-month period. So that is the last follow-up time point we have for those patients. We are considering a 12-month follow-up time point for the phase 2 study, but when we have those discussions with the FDA in the pre-IND meeting, it's possible that we may do a 2-year follow-up period, but it will be based on their recommendation. But given the safety and the efficacy that we saw in the STEP trial, we consider 12 months to be sufficient to demonstrate the true potential of the product.
Thank you. Will Progenza need to be injected monthly or yearly, or at what time frame to be effective?
Mm-hmm. That's a good question, and actually I tried to emphasize that in the presentation. So the advantage of Progenza is that it is a single injection. So we have demonstrated that a single injection of Progenza can deliver a sustained pain reduction and halting of cartilage degeneration in 12 months. So we are still exploring a potential opportunity to do it as an annual injection, but again, these are the early considerations internally at the moment. I don't know, Sinead, do you have any other views on this?
I think you've covered it. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, there are approximately 20,000 ruptured ACL operations in Australia each year. Could Progenza be an adjunctive treatment in this area? The rationale being that there is associated damage to the ligaments and bones, which it may help.
Sinead?
Yeah, so at the moment, our focus is primarily on osteoarthritis, and osteoarthritis is, as you'd be aware, a whole joint disease. So there are issues with the cartilage and the synovium and other components of the joint that we're targeting for treatment at the moment. There is evidence to suggest that Progenza would be useful in those sorts of circumstances when someone has ruptured their ACL, but at the moment, due to how we have to basically identify which patients will be included in the trial. Those patients with ruptured ACLs won't be included in the trial, but it's something that we can consider down the track because there would be benefits from Progenza in those patients who have ruptured their ACL.
Yeah. And I guess just to reiterate, so Progenza is a platform technology, and we see multiple opportunities beyond knee osteoarthritis. So we've seen globally that there are certain companies in the MSC space working on bone fractures and other indications. So here, the opportunity is quite wide for Regeneus, and we'll need to carefully assess which other indications we'll be pursuing given the market size and our risk assessment or potential to obtain successful clinical trial outcomes. But importantly, Regeneus and Progenza and then Regeneus products are platform technologies where application opportunities are multiple.
Thank you. We just have a couple of more questions. The next one is, would you expect a target price of Progenza to be similar to other cell therapies, e.g. Invosa, once it reaches the market?
Well, it's hard to comment on this because we don't know what the price point of Invosa will be. And at this stage, it's still not clear whether they are actually running a phase 3 trial in the US, given all the legal issues they're facing in the Korean market. So here it's just hard for me to speculate because we don't have any data points around the pricing of these therapies, which are still currently in development. But from the perspective of existing therapies in the market and incremental value from the perspective of pain reduction and cartilage regeneration, generally we are quite optimistic around the potential price points in various jurisdictions for Progenza product, just based on our initial conversations with PMDA and so on. So yes, we expect that all the work in the past 14 years in developing technology will be able to finally get the value of that once we commercialize these products in the market.
Thank you. Our next question is, can you give an indication of the percentage of the efficacy for Progenza for the knee?
This is quite a broad question, so I'll let Sinead respond maybe based on phase 1 data.
Yeah, that is quite a difficult question to answer because I think it depends what you are classifying as efficacy. So in the STEP trial, we used a number of different outcome measures to assess efficacy, ranging from the pain scores that Carolus showed, as well as function and stiffness. We also measured MRI, and then we had other exploratory endpoints like Fitbit, so looking at their activity and levels and sleep quality and things like that. However, if you are looking at symptomatic relief, in the Progenza treated group, 87.5% of the patients were considered responders in the STEP trial. So that's quite a high percentage, and the placebo group was much lower, as you'd expect. So I guess that's one way to put a percentage on it. In terms of the cartilage halting of disease progression, we saw a marginal increase in cartilage volume in patients who received Progenza. So that was around 0.3%, which is important because if you don't receive any treatment, your cartilage volume will degrade at about 5% over the year, and which is what we saw in the placebo group, and we got a statistically significant difference between the two. So there's a couple of ways to put a percentage on efficacy, but that's, I think, all we can do at this stage because it is quite a complex question depending on how you look at efficacy.
Yes. So just to emphasize this, halting of cartilage degeneration or cartilage regeneration is a very important aspect of our products. So most of the therapeutics right now in the market and in the development, they target pain, and disease modification, knee osteoarthritis is a holy grail in this indication. So once you're able to demonstrate that you can halt cartilage degeneration or potentially regenerate cartilage, then obviously that opens up many more opportunities for this product, especially on the pricing side. So here we are very excited about the phase 1 outcomes in this particular endpoint. And just now we're working on phase 2 trials to get more statistically significant data on this endpoint.
Thank you. Our next question is: the current application is to use either cells or cells and secretions. Is there a clinical opportunity to use just the secretions, but use them as an ongoing treatment or continuous treatment, e.g. in acute respiratory distress syndrome, where temporary treatment, say for 1 month, may respond to short secretions only treatment?
Mm-hmm. Charlotte, would you like to start answering this question?
Yes, sure. I think most of the stem cell therapy that are focusing on ARDS are injecting cells. And I think potentially because the cells have, generally when they're administered systemically, they do have a homing to the lungs and therefore have a very great chance of exerting a therapeutic effect within the lungs. Secretions, not so much. We would need to be doing a local injection for those. And so I would say that potentially a cell therapy is a better option there.
Sinead, do you have any views on this?
No, just to say that we are using our Regeneus product for topical applications, as Charlotte mentioned. So we're really targeting things like pain and wound healing with the secretions when they're applied topically, because that's a way that they can achieve their maximum effect.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. This seems to be our final question. Is it likely that Progenza will receive government subsidies in the future?
Well, it depends what is meant by subsidies. So Progenza will likely be a reimbursed product. So in that respect, government will pay for this product in different jurisdictions. I guess from the development perspective, and again, I implied in multiple cases now in my presentation, is that we expect that Progenza phase 2 trial will be partially funded by non-dilutive grants in the US. We haven't provided much detail around that, but this is the opportunity we're working on, which will potentially significantly reduce the total cost of a phase 2 clinical trial in the US. So yes, we are actively working on this government funding opportunity. What relates to Australia, so for phase 2 trial, of Progenza, we applied for NHMRC grant, and the expected outcome, if I'm not mistaken, is in June this year. Also for Regeneus, and I briefly implied that in the presentation, is that we recently were awarded a grant for a phase 1 trial. This is still not disclosed information, and we will soon be announcing that to the market once the agreement is signed.
Thank you. That brings our question and answer session to a close and right on time. So thank you. So I'll hand back to you, Carolus, for some closing remarks.
Yeah, so thank you very much for joining us today. On behalf of our board and management, I wish to thank you for your continued support of Regeneus. We look forward to keeping you updated on our progress in due course. So thank you very much for joining the session today.